Merci tout le monde d'être ici aujourd'hui. Quelle belle journée pour être ici avec nos candidats Dean Wyth, Paul Desornans et Ryan Telford, ainsi que Michael Barrett, notre porte-parole en matière d'éthique. What a great corruption-busting champion we have in Eastern Ontario with Michael Barrett. Thank you for all your hard work holding this government to account and tirelessly pointing out and exposing Liberal waste and corruption and Mark Carney's unprecedented conflicts of interest. Before I go into what I'm going to announce, let me talk about why I'm going to announce it. The reason that it's important not to have government corruption, conflicts of interest, and rampant waste is because the people always pay the price. When politicians get rich by making everyone else poor, waitresses and welders, truck drivers, and barbers end up paying the price and worse off. That's probably why Mark Carney's in hiding. Mark Carney is hiding again today in the middle of the election campaign he called, so that you can forget that the lost Liberal decade drove the cost of housing and food up and drove your wages and living standards down. The crime and chaos are overtaking our once safe streets. He wants you to forget that Liberal insiders like him have profited richly off of the misery of everyone else. He wants you to forget that Canada has had the worst housing inflation in the G7, the worst economic growth in the G7, the worst household debt in the G7, that $500 billion has left Canada for the Americans because of the economic policies Mr. Carney advised Trudeau to implement. He wants you to forget all of that. But he also wants you to forget that while Canadians were suffering, he and Liberal insiders were getting rich. They were benefiting off of the suffering. This is because of very powerful conflicts of interest that remain in place today and which Mr. Carney refuses to answer for. But let's just chronicle the corruption that we have witnessed in the last 10 years of the Liberals. Prime Minister Trudeau was found twice guilty of violating the Ethics Act, taking illegal vacations and interfering in corporate prosecutions. We know that the Green Slush Fund saw $1 billion largely handed out to government insiders, where the board members who handed out the money were also invested in the companies that got the money. Then there was the Arrive scam, a useless app no one needed that cost hundreds of times more than necessary and in the end didn't work, and no one was held accountable. The amount of money now spent on government contractors has gone up by well over 100% in a decade to over $20 billion. Roughly $1,400 per family is spent in federal taxes to fund consultants. Now, if you think for a second that this Liberal corruption is going to change with a fourth Liberal term headed by Mark Carney, sadly, you'd be exactly wrong. In fact, Mark Carney brings even more conflicts of interest. He's invested in a company that has money stashed away, billions of dollars stashed in overseas tax havens. He has a company that is in debt to the Chinese government-backed bank to the tune of $250 million. His company profited by his personal interventions to get handouts for investments they made in jet fuel and heat pumps. Now, his big solution to the Liberal housing crisis is that he wants the government to build prefabricated tiny homes. Well, his company is invested in prefabricated tiny homes. Clearly, this is not about helping young people own their own home. It's about filling the pockets of his investors and himself. Mr. Carney refuses to tell Canadians what investments he continues to own or even where he pays his taxes. This means that when he's sitting around the cabinet table making decisions, his personal interests will be against Canada's national interest. We need change. Change so you can afford a home. Change so you can afford food. Change so your paycheck rises faster than your cost of living. Change so you have safe streets and crime-free communities again. Change so you can be confident that your government is working for you, not for wealthy insiders or for the politicians who are making the decisions. La raison pour laquelle M. Carney se cache aujourd'hui, c'est parce qu'il veut vous faire oublier que le coût du logement a doublé pendant les années libérales, que le coût de nourriture a gonflé et que votre chèque de paie est en baisse lorsque vos coûts sont en hausse. Il veut vous faire oublier les décennies perdues des libéraux, où le coût du logement a doublé, notre dette nationale a doublé, les files d'attente des banques alimentaires ont doublé, les aliments ont augmenté 36% plus rapidement ici au Canada qu'aux États-Unis, et nous avons eu la pire croissance économique parmi le G7, le pire endettement familial parmi le G7 et la pire inflation immobilière parmi le G7. C'est ça la décennie perdue des libéraux. Il ne veut pas défendre le bilan qu'il a comme conseiller économique à Justin Trudeau, ni défendre les scandales entourant ses propres conflits d'intérêts. Si on choisit un quatrième mandat des libéraux, on va avoir plus de coups, plus de crimes et plus de corruption. Mais on peut changer avec un nouveau gouvernement conservateur qui va couper taxes et impôts, libérer nos entrepreneurs pour bâtir des logements et produire nos ressources naturelles, nous rendant plus indépendants face aux Américains. Nous pouvons avoir un nouveau gouvernement qui va rendre nos politiciens et notre gouvernement imputables. The last time we had a conservative government, we were on the heels of a lot of other liberal scandal. Who could forget the sponsorship scandal? We came to office promising an Accountability Act, and we delivered. We passed laws forcing more disclosure of government information, banning conflicts of interest, cracking down on insiders, setting up the lobbyist registry so that we knew who was paid to influence government decisions. And it worked for a while until liberals found loopholes. We have to give them credit. They're very creative. As much as we tried to stomp out all the liberal corruption, they went to work to find ways around the rules. So, I'm announcing today that a new conservative government will bring change by introducing the Accountability Act 2.0, designed to remove the loopholes that Mr. Carney and the Liberals are using to avoid accountability for themselves and for their party. We're going to put Canadians first for a change. We're going to have an accountable government for a change. We're going to have politicians and leaders who work for you, for your affordable home and food, for your safe street, for your paycheck, for a change. So, let me lay out some of the elements of this plan. First, we will ban shadow lobbying. Now, shadow lobbying is when professional VIPs with big shot titles call themselves advisors so that they can influence government decisions to profit themselves, but then get around lobbying rules. And Mr. Carney's been famous for this. He bragged that he lobbied the British government to increase jet fuel prices while his company invested in the jet fuel. He brags that he influenced governments to subsidize heat pumps while his company invests in heat pumps. He says that he's going to reverse the liberal housing crisis by having the government build prefab tiny homes. Well, his company is invested in prefab tiny homes. Using a fake title of advisor to push policies that enrich yourself while impoverishing everyone else is an unacceptable conflict of interest, and it is nothing more than glorified corporate lobbying that is unregistered. We have a lobbyist registry which is meant to allow Canadians to know who is taking money to influence government decisions. We cannot allow high-priced corporate insiders like Mark Carney to go around those rules. And so, henceforth, we will eliminate the lobbying loophole and require anyone who's acting as an advisor to government officials to declare themselves and register as a lobbyist whenever they are advising on matters that touch upon their financial interests or that of their company. This would have required Mr. Carney register as a lobbyist when he was talking about anything that would have profited his corporate interests at Brookfield. Second, we will stop politicians from profiting off their own decisions. Ministers should not be involved in setting policies that enrich themselves or their families without accountability. We should not allow people to use their political power in government to make decisions that will advantage themselves above and beyond the public interest. Let me explain the problem. There is a section in the Ethics Act right now that allows a politician to make a decision that benefits him or his family if it benefits other people as well. Now, the reason that was set up was so that, for example, Jim Flaherty benefited by cutting the GST because his consumer purchases were a little more affordable. But, of course, everybody benefited. We didn't want to declare that to be a conflict of interest. But it's been widely over-interpreted to allow, for example, Bill Morneau to make policies that affect insurance plans just because there are multiple companies that benefit from it and not just his. And so we will put in place a stricter test that will ban politicians, particularly ministers, from any involvement in decisions that would benefit their interests more than the public interest. They would also have to declare these interests publicly and widely so that everyone knows. Third, we'll increase the fines for ethics violations to $10,000. No more slaps on the wrist. 4, tax transparency. Anyone running for office will have to disclose where they paid taxes for the last 7 years. In which country? Interestingly, one reporter has contacted Mr. Carney's campaign and said, have you been paying taxes in Canada personally? And his campaign refuses to answer that question. Seems like a pretty basic question. He's the Prime Minister of Canada, and he can't tell a journalist whether he pays taxes in Canada, whether he personally pays the same taxes that he charges everyone else? This is, I've never seen something like this in my life. And then you have his corporate interests where we know he has cash stashed in Bermuda, in the Caymans, and other of the most flagrant offshore tax havens. So while he was advising Justin Trudeau to raise your taxes, he was dodging his. He still has those conflicts in place. How would you ever trust him to reform the tax system to make it fairer when he benefits from dodging his bills? Waitresses, truck drivers, manual laborers have to pay a much higher tax rate than Mark Carney's company, and he remains in that conflict. So he should have to reveal where he's paid his tax for the last 7 years. Fifth, we'll require cabinet ministers to divest fully from tax havens and disclose their assets to the Office of the Ethics Commissioner with penalties for noncompliance. No more so-called blind trusts that are only blind to the public. What does this mean? It means that when you're going into cabinet, including becoming Prime Minister, you would actually have to sell all the assets, turn it into cash, hand that cash over to a trustee who would then invest it from scratch, unbeknownst to you, so that you would not have any ability to know what interests you have that go against the public interest. Right now, Mr. Carney has handed over his Brookfield investments knowing they cannot be sold. So he knows exactly what he owns, but no one else does. And as a result, there is no blind trust when you know what's inside that trust. It is blind only to the public. He should have to sell and liquidate these investments and then have the cash reinvested without his knowledge so that he could not possibly act in his own interest and against the Canadian interest. Sixth, we'll require party leaders to disclose their assets within 30 days of becoming leader or require the Prime Minister to divest their assets within 30 days of taking that job. Le dernier gouvernement conservateur sur lequel j'ai servi a introduit la loi fédérale sur la responsabilité pour mettre fin à la corruption libérale qui nous a apporté le scandale des commandites. J'étais le secrétaire parlementaire, en passant, qui a fait adopter cette loi au comité. Mais dès que les libéraux sont retournés au pouvoir, ils ont trouvé de nouvelles failles à exploiter et de nouveaux moyens d'échapper à cette loi. C'est pourquoi un nouveau gouvernement conservateur va présenter une nouvelle loi, la loi de responsabilité 2.0. Un plan pour mettre fin à la corruption au sein du gouvernement, éliminer les échappatoires qui profitent aux initiés comme Mark Carney et mettre le Canada d'abord pour faire changement. Voici comment. Premièrement, on va interdire le lobbying fantôme. Tous ceux qui conseillent directement ou indirectement le gouvernement et qui sont susceptibles d'en tirer un avantage financier, comme l'a fait Carney lorsqu'il conseillait Justin Trudeau pendant les 5 dernières années, doivent enregistrer en tant que lobbyistes sans aucune exception. Deuxièmement, on va interdire aux hommes politiques de prendre des décisions qui les enrichissent, eux ou leurs familles. On va exiger l'approbation du commissaire à l'éthique ainsi que la divulgation publique de tous les intérêts personnels. La fonction publique doit être au service de la population. Elle ne doit pas être une source de profit. Donc, dans plusieurs cas, M. Carney profite des mauvaises décisions. L'inflation gonfle ses actifs et favorise son entreprise. Ça, c'est un conflit d'intérêts. Ça va être interdit. On ne veut pas qu'un premier ministre travaille pour gonfler ses actifs en créant une inflation qui nuit à la population. Troisièmement, on va augmenter les amendes pour les violations de l'éthique à 10 000 $. C'est fini, les avertissements. Quatrièmement, on va demander la transparence fiscale. On va exiger à tout candidat à une fonction publique qui relève où il a payé ses impôts au cours des 7 dernières années. Cinquièmement, on va exiger des ministres qu'ils se retirent totalement des paradis fiscaux et qu'ils divulguent leurs actifs au bureau au commissaire aux éthiques pour éviter les conflits d'intérêts. C'est fini les fiducies dites sans droit à regard qui n'aveuglent que le public. On va exiger des chefs de parti qu'ils divulguent leurs actifs dans les 30 jours suivant leur ascension à la tête de leur parti et des premiers ministres qui se débarrassent de leurs actifs dans les 30 jours suivant leur entrée en fonction. During the last Liberal decade, Liberals let insiders like Mark Carney put themselves and their interests first. They got rich by making Canadians poor. Ils se sont devenus riches en rendant les Canadiens pauvres. The Accountability Act 2.0 will put you first. Your family, your affordable food, your affordable home, your safe street. Your family, your country, your future. A new Conservative government will put an affordable life first for a change. We'll cut your taxes by 15%, saving the average family with 2 workers $2,000. We'll cut taxes on new homes by $100,000. We'll bring in a Canada First economic action plan to unlock our natural resources, build projects and infrastructure, empower entrepreneurs, unleash our economy, and reduce our dependence on the Americans so that we can stand on our feet and stand up to Trump from a position of strength. And we will put your quality of life first for a change by stopping crime and bringing back safe streets. We'll ban criminals with a 3 strikes you're out law, shut down drug dens, treat 50,000 people suffering from addiction. A new Conservative government will respect your hard work, honor your trust, and deliver results for you. We'll restore the promise of Canada, that hard work gets you a great life in a beautiful, affordable home, with good food, on a safe street, under a proud flag. Nous allons faire un changement pour le Canada, pour vous mettre d'abord votre nourriture abordable, votre maison abordable, votre sécurité d'abord. On va travailler pour les Canadiens au lieu que pour les intérêts privés. Et on va ramener la promesse du Canada, où chacun qui travaille fort pourrait avoir une belle vie dans une belle maison abordable sur une rue sécuritaire sous notre fier drapeau canadien. Only a new conservative government can bring change. We cannot afford a fourth Liberal term of rising costs and crime and a falling economy. Canada deserves better. Canada deserves change. Let's bring it home.
Thank you. We will now take questions from the floor. Please say your name and outlet.
Good morning. I'm Iqbal Atwal from 97.9 Chin FM Radio Hans, a radio station serving Ottawa's South Asian community. Our listeners, very hardworking family, immigrant, and long-term residents, are deeply concerned about the rising crime in Ottawa, particularly car theft and home invasion. These crimes are not just about the property, they're making people feel unsafe in their own homes and neighborhood. If elected, what specific action will your party take to address these serious safety concerns and help restore a sense of security in our community?
Thank you very much. It's Iqbal, you said?
Yes, Iqbal Atwal.
Oh, thank you, Mr. Atwal. I really appreciate your question. And what part of town do you live in, if you don't mind my asking?
I'm in Ottawa.
What part of Ottawa are you in?
It's Ottawa near Bayshore.
Bayshore, okay, yes. These used to be really safe neighborhoods. The reason I asked, I lived in Barhaven, not too far from Bayshore. And I remember, when I lived there, you could basically leave your door unlocked. It was so safe. But after the lost Liberal decade of catch and release, hug-a-thug laws, crime is raging out of control. Liberal law C-75 requires judges release accused offenders often for the 60th or 70th time at the earliest opportunity and under the least onerous conditions. This means that a tiny group of reoffenders are able to totally tear apart our communities with no consequences whatsoever. They have house arrest under Liberal law C-5, which allows offenders who've been convicted to just sit in their living room and promise not to go outside. Well, of course, they walk out the door and reoffend. These insane Liberal crime policies are endangering our people. We cannot risk a fourth Liberal term of rampaging crime. We need a change with a new Conservative government that will lock up criminals and bring home safety. And this is my plan to do it. I will repeal Liberal law C-75 to end catch and release bail. I will repeal C-5, the house arrest, Liberal house arrest law. We will bring in a 3 strikes you're out law, which says that anyone convicted of 3 serious offenses will automatically be ineligible for bail, parole, probation, or house arrest for the rest of their lives. They will serve a minimum of 10 years and a maximum of life and will only get out of jail if they have an impeccable record of clean drug tests, good behavior, and learning an employable skill. We will also secure our borders with high-powered scanners that look into shipping containers to stop drugs, guns, and stolen cars. We will hire 2,000 more frontline CBSA officers who can stop the illegal importations. And we will ban hard drugs, shut down taxpayer-funded drug consumption sites, and invest in treating 50,000 Canadians to defeat addiction and bring our loved ones home drug-free. We need a change to bring home safe streets, and only Conservatives will do it. Thank you.
En français.
Merci beaucoup de votre question, M. Atwal. Les communautés que vous décrivez étaient très, très sécuritaires auparavant. Mais maintenant, c'est le chaos total à cause des libérations automatiques des criminels que les libéraux ont mis en place avec la loi C-75. C'est une libération sous caution automatique et obligée qui permettent des mêmes criminels ayant fait des 80 crimes auparavant d'être libérés automatiquement. Les peines Netflix que les libéraux ont mis en place permettent des criminels de faire leur sentence devant la télé dans leur maison. Et ça a libéré une énorme crise de criminalité à travers le Canada qu'on va renverser. Moi, on ne peut pas se permettre un 4e mandat libéral de plus de criminalité. Il faut que ça change avec un nouveau gouvernement conservateur qui va mettre la sécurité des Canadiens d'abord. On va abroger les lois libérales C-75, C-5 et le remplacer avec une loi de 3 coups. 3 crimes et un criminel va devoir rester en prison pour au moins 10 ans et ne sera pas éligible pour la liberté en caution, sous caution ou la liberté conditionnelle. C'est fini les peines Netflix pour des récidivistes. Ils vont aller en prison. On va sécuriser nos frontières avec des scanners de boîtes de conteneurs, plus d'agents immobiliers, d'agents frontaliers et moins de trafiquants d'armes et de drogue. C'est comme ça qu'on va renverser les décennies perdues de criminalité que les libéraux ont apporté et amener un vrai changement pour mettre la sécurité d'abord.
Thank you. Next question.
Hi, Marco Vigliati, iPolitics. Once again, we're seeing an announcement, an ethics announcement focused on, Mark Carney overtly. But one thing we really haven't heard so far during this campaign is your plan to deal with the threat the threat foreign interference poses to our institutions and our election integrity. Obviously, a major focus at the previous Parliament. We've even seen during this campaign questions raised about certain candidates' close ties to foreign governments. But we really haven't heard too much on your end what you would do differently other than scolding the Liberals for not putting in place the foreign agent registry fast enough. So I'm just wondering, let's maybe just focus on nomination races, for example, a known soft spot for this activity. Would you commit to bringing those races under the umbrella of the Canada Elections Act? And if you won't commit to doing that, can you give Canadians any assurances that you would take foreign interference serious enough, even if that means reducing the autonomy political parties like the one you lead have over things like nomination races?
We will. I can assure you that we will take foreign interference seriously. After the lost Liberal decade, Canada has become a playground to foreign interference. And the Liberals have benefited from interference by Beijing in 2 consecutive elections. Beijing has now interfered in both the Liberal leadership race to help Mark Carney and again in the general election to help Mr. Carney. Mr. Carney learned of a Liberal candidate on his roster that was telling people to send his Conservative opponent back over to China on a bounty where he would have been imprisoned or killed, and Mr. Carney refused to get rid of that candidate. Even it was actually the candidate that finally left after we found out that the RCMP was involved. I'm very worried about the foreign interference that could result from the fact that Mr. Carney's company, which he still invests in, owes $250 million to the Chinese government. So one of the things we're going to do to stop foreign interference is require politicians divest their interests, sell them, not just put them in a fake blind trust, so they no longer have their financial strings attached to a hostile foreign government. And yes, I have complained that they have not set up the foreign interference registry. You will recall that our party put partisanship aside and we rushed through the foreign interference law. I sent out my brilliant foreign affairs critic, Michael Chong. He walked in front of all of you. He announced we would fast-track the passage. And the reason was because we wanted that foreign agent registry in place by the time the election happened. The Liberals said they would do that, and here we are. And now we don't know who are the paid actors operating on behalf of foreign governments. So we need a new Conservative government that will end the foreign interference, stand up for the integrity of our democracy, and protect our people from foreign dangers. For a change.
En français.
Merci beaucoup. Oui, je vais prendre l'ingérence étrangère au sérieux. On a déjà demandé au gouvernement de mettre en place le registre des agents de l'étranger, mais on a en fait accéléré l'adoption de la loi visant à créer ce registre. Mais les libéraux ont retardé la mise en œuvre et on n'est pas au courant maintenant de qui est en train de travailler pour un gouvernement hostile de l'étranger. M. Carney a déjà refusé d'expulser un candidat ayant suggéré l'expulsion d'un Canadien vers la Chine, un opposant politique vers la Chine. M. Carney a toujours des intérêts financiers dans une entreprise qui doit 250 millions de dollars à une banque contrôlée par le gouvernement de la Chine. On ne peut pas continuer comme ça. Il nous faut un nouveau gouvernement qui va empêcher l'ingérence étrangère, qui va mettre en place le registre pour exposer ceux et celles qui travaillent pour des gouvernements étrangers et contre nos intérêts, et qui va protéger nos citoyens ici au Canada contre l'agression des gouvernements de l'étranger. Merci beaucoup.
Thank you. Next question.
Bonjour, M. Poilievre, Olivier Ferron-Boissy de TVA. Vous l'avez mentionné, ça fait 3 jours que M. Carney ne fait pas campagne, 3 jours qu'il ne prend pas de questions de la presse. Pourtant, ça ne semble pas lui nuire. Il n'y a pas grand-chose qui semble coller, en fait. C'est quoi le problème?
C'est un choix pour les Canadiens. Après le décennie perdu des libéraux, où les coûts augmentent, la criminalité est en hausse et notre économie est en baisse, est-ce qu'on veut un 4e mandat pour des libéraux? Ou est-ce qu'on veut un changement avec un nouveau gouvernement conservateur qui va couper les taxes et les impôts, libérer nos ressources naturelles, permettre la construction de logements que les jeunes puissent acheter et ramener les emplois ici au Canada pour faire face aux Américains avec la force? C'est ça le choix. Ou bien un 4e mandat des libéraux, ou bien un vrai changement avec les conservateurs. C'est le choix que les Canadiens vont devoir prendre et j'ai confiance qu'ils vont prendre et ils vont faire la bonne décision.
Thank you. In English.
Thank you very much for the question. The choice that Canadians will have to make is, after a lost Liberal decade, where costs and crime are skyrocketing and our economy is falling under the American thumb, are we going to elect them to the Liberals to a 4th term and have more of the same? Or is it time for a change with a new Conservative government that will axe taxes, greenlight home building, resource development, bring home our jobs so we can stand on our own 2 feet for a change? Look, it's the same Liberal gang, same Liberal ministers, same Liberal MPs, same Liberal advisors making the same Liberal promises that got us into this mess over the last decade. Canadians will have to decide if they can afford a 4th term. Change means hope. Change means affordable food. Change means affordable homes. Change means safe streets. Change means, well, change in your pocket.
Thank you. We'll now go to the final question.
Colton Prale, CTV.
Yes, sir.
In 2 weeks, whoever forms government is going to face critical American trade negotiations. Who would you lead? Who would you have lead your team in those negotiations?
Well, we'll be announcing our foreign minister and our cabinet after the election. But I've never seen a politician announce his cabinet before he gets elected. So that would be pretty presumptuous to start naming a cabinet before the election is over. We have a strong team of people. You look at our shadow cabinet, we have a phenomenal group that have shown tremendous competence and readiness. And look, the reality is that Mark Carney's running on a false promise. He claimed that he'd made progress with Donald Trump in his phone call. And 2 days or 3 days later, we got hit with more tariffs. And then when the rest of the world got a pause on tariffs, Mr. Carney did not secure that. Now, I'm not blaming him for that. The blame rests with Donald Trump for wrong-headed tariffs. What I'm taking issue with is making false promises. We need to focus on what we can control, which is to say, reverse the disastrous economic policies that Mark Carney advised Justin Trudeau to put in place over the lost Liberal decade. Policies that drove investment out, wages down, costs up, and weakened our country. We cannot afford a 4th Liberal term. We need a new Conservative government that will bring real change. Change so you can afford food, homes, change so that your paycheck goes up faster than your cost of living, change so you have safe streets. Thank you.
En français.
Merci beaucoup. Le choix pour les Canadiens sur la question des États-Unis, c'est qu'est-ce qu'on va faire sur les enjeux qu'on peut contrôler? On peut contrôler ce que nous faisons ici. Et ce que nous devrions faire, c'est de devenir plus indépendants face aux Américains. On ne peut pas avoir une situation où on dépend des Américains de 60% de nos exportations, presque 100% de nos exportations d'énergie. Il nous faut renverser toutes les politiques libérales avisées par M. Carney, mis en œuvre par les ministres actuels du gouvernement libéral, qui ont expulsé 500 milliards de dollars de l'investissement, augmenté le coût de la vie pour les Canadiens et nous a rendus faibles face à Donald Trump. On a besoin d'un nouveau gouvernement conservateur avec un vrai changement pour couper les taxes et les impôts, ramener l'investissement et les jobs ici au Canada, permettre la construction de logements et des ressources naturelles pour pouvoir tenir tête aux Américains avec la force pour faire changement.
Thank you. That concludes today's press conference.
Thank you very much.
Like and subscribe, everybody. God bless. Stay safe, and we'll see you in the next one, my friends.